Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank all of you for being here today to learn a little bit more about efforts that will be taken here in North Carolina to promote the Equal Rights Amendment. As many of you are aware, the Equal Rights Amendment was passed by Congress in 1972, and it was sent to the states for ratification. By 1982, over 35 states had gone ahead and passed it, and that's significant, that's important. But it took quite a while for it to get steam once again. And of course, in March of 2017, Nevada became the 36th state to pass the ERA. In 2018, Illinois became the 37th state. Only one additional state is needed for ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment to allow it to become part of our country's Constitution. And I want to make certain that we pass the ERA. For the first time in our nation's history, it would guarantee equal rights for all citizens without regard to a person's gender. The Equal Rights Amendment would prohibit sex-based discrimination, and for the very first time guarantee that men and women are treated equally in the eyes of the law. Today here in North Carolina, there's no requirement that men and women in the workplace be treated equally, or for that matter, that they receive equal pay for equal work. The state of North Carolina today can lawfully discriminate, and it's legally permissible to discriminate in distinguishing between men and women. That should not exist. It's inconceivable to me that in the 21st century, we need to even debate whether women deserve equal rights in America. This fact is self-evident. Earlier this year, Senators Terry Van Dyne and Erica Smith and I were the primary sponsors of Senate Bill 184. In the House, Representatives Carla Cunningham, Susan Fisher, Evelyn Terry, and Julie Von Haven sponsored House Bill 271. Today, we are here to renew our commitment to making North Carolina the 38th state to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. Unfortunately, today, Representative Cunningham could not be here as a result of commitments in her district, as well as Representative Terry, but I believe the other sponsors are here. I know Senator Van Dyne should be arriving shortly. And I am so proud that the American Association of University Women of North Carolina, in partnership with the ERA North Carolina Alliance and the North Carolina Division of the National Organization of Women, are here to announce the launch of a program and a campaign to increase public awareness of the Equal Rights Amendment, which will use strategically placed billboards in high traffic volume areas in our state to cause people to think about the ERA. These billboards will be in places like Raleigh, Greensboro, Concord, and Wilmington, and it's appropriate that this whole program is being launched as a part of a Constitution Day program. Constitution Day will occur on September 17th, and it commemorates the date that the U.S. Constitution was signed, and it's fitting and appropriate this campaign be launched as a part of this program. You know, when I sit here and look at North Carolina, I'm not very proud of the fact that we rank about 37th in teacher pay and around 39th in per pupil spending in our public schools. But I will be extremely proud and gratified when North Carolina becomes the 38th state to ratify ERA. I'd now like to introduce Marina Grohl, who is the co-president of the ERA-NC Alliance, who's been a great champion in our state for the ERA, who will introduce other speakers today. Those speakers will include Jane Terwillinger of the American Association of University Women, as well as, I believe Galia is supposed to be here. She has arrived. Absolutely. The North Carolina Association of the National Organization for Women. We have our other representatives, Von Hagen, as well as Representative Fisher, who are here as well, and they will be speaking at appropriate times. So let me thank all of you for being here. Marina, if you can come forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Marina Grohl, a co-president of the Equal Rights Amendment Alliance, along with Joanna Wade, who is also a co-president. On behalf of both of us and the Alliance, we thank Senator McKissick for having us here today as we advocate for ERA bills like those that he has consistently filed in the Senate, and Woo! Representative Carla Cunningham has likewise filed in the House. Woo! Woo! And he has mentioned and called their names, but this is historic, and I'm going to call their names again. We want to thank all of the co-sponsors of the bills and the primary co-sponsors. Senator Terry Van Dyne, Senator Erica Smith, Representative Susan Fisher, Representative Evelyn Terry, Representative Julie Von Haven. Woo! Woo! You will hear from some of those co-sponsors today, and from two of our alliance organizations, that are partnering with us to launch a discussion about women's equality and the ERA in advance of Constitution Day on September the 17th. So thank you to the presidents of those organizations for being here with us today. Jane Terwilliger, President of the American Association of the University of Women of North Carolina, and Galia Paliga, President of the National Organization for Women of North Carolina. Today, we will be unveiling a message that kicks off this discussion about women's rights, women's equality, and the ERA. This is as we head towards the federal observance of Constitution Day. That's the day in 1787 when the United States Constitution was signed, and that's the day we reflect on citizenship. And as we consider citizenship, we know that women continue to confront the worst workplace discrimination, healthcare inequality, alarming rates of poverty, devaluation of our roles in the home, rape, domestic violence, and a lack of political parity. Yet, when we get to the courts to work to try to protect ourselves in cases where sexual discrimination is suspect, our cases do not receive the same strict judicial scrutiny as afforded in discrimination cases based on race, religion, and national origin. Women, and certainly women of color, have a different citizenship experience in America.
Yep.
And what that comes down to is that in our state, 4.2 million women live in North Carolina, but 0 of those women can say that they have equal rights under the law.
Yep.
These are critical months ahead of us. 37 states have ratified the ERA. We only need one more to reach the 38th state that is necessary to amend the United States Constitution. This is North Carolina's chance to change not only the course of our state, but to literally change the course of this country. So let us lead.
Yeah.
Woo!
Good afternoon. My name is Julie Von Hathen, and I'm the representative for District 36 here in Wake County. I'm also proud to be one of the primary sponsors of House Bill 271, the bill to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment in North Carolina. First of all, I just want to say how tremendously proud I am of the advocates who are here dedicated and have dedicated so much time and effort to ratifying the ERA. Their passion for organizing to ensure women's constitutional rights is inspiring, and I've got to give it to them. They know how to stick it out for the long haul. After all, the ERA was proposed almost 100 years ago, but it still hasn't been ratified to our nation's constitution. In that time, we have seen some legislation that has been passed to allow women more freedom and more equality. And in all honesty, we have made some progress toward that, but we're still not there. Many lawmakers I've talked to have said that the ERA is unnecessary, that women already have constitutional protections, but that is really wholly inaccurate. Sex discrimination is still a huge problem in our country, and our legislative and constitutional protections have proved inadequate. Even under the 14th Amendment and the Equal Pay Act, employers can pay women and men in the same position at different rates, as long as the employer can prove that they have a non-discriminatory reason for doing so. Gender discrimination in the workplace often directly results in women taking home lower wages. In fact, women in North Carolina lose an average of $6,628 from their paychecks each year due to the wage gap. While women make 81 cents in comparison with men, that number is much higher for minority women. Hispanic women only make 49 cents on the dollar, and black women only make 62 cents on the dollar compared with white men in our state. Overall, North Carolina loses out on 3% of its GDP annually due to our wage gap, which amounts to $15.6 billion a year. If North Carolina achieved pay equity this year, our state's poverty rate would be cut by 45%. If ratified, the ERA's language would create more rigorous constitutional protections for evaluating discriminatory policies that impact women. The ERA would give more teeth to lawsuits that attempt to hold employers accountable for gender discrimination. If we ratify the ERA and it is found that members of one sex are harmed disproportionately by a workplace policy, then that policy could be considered to be a violation of that person's guaranteed constitutional right to equality. We must ratify the ERA so that the legislation we've already passed and will pass in the future will have its intended effect of protecting women's rights. Did you know that 80% of Americans believe that women's equality is already guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution? And every single person who believes that is wrong. That's why this visibility campaign is so important, and that's why these advocates' mission to ratify the ERA is so important. By fighting for this constitutional amendment, we are fighting with the hope that future generations of women will not have to fight so hard. I'm fighting for my 13-year-old daughter and all girls like her who deserve to live in a state and a country where our foundational documents recognize a woman's right to equal treatment under the law. They must have an equal opportunity to succeed. As Justice Ginsburg pointed out, every constitution written since the end of World War II in our planet includes a provision that men and women are equal citizens of equal stature. Ours does not. I'm glad to know that the billboards that they're going to reveal today across our state will be going up across our state because women need to know what their rights are under our Constitution. And more than that, they need to know that advocates like this and myself and the other representatives and senators here are going to keep fighting for them. North Carolina can make history by being the 38th and final state to ratify the ERA. This bill has been introduced in the General Assembly for the last 3 sessions, and it has never moved out of committee. It's time to do what we can do to ensure courts have the necessary tools to protect women's rights to equality and guarantee that equality under our Constitution. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Jane Terwilliger. I'm president of AEUW North Carolina, the American Association of University Women. We have been empowering women and girls since 1881 with the Association for American University Women. We are one of the organizations sponsoring the Billboards, now up in 4 cities in North Carolina. AAUW has a local organization in each one of those cities, 18 branches across the state of North Carolina. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, that starts the first paragraph of the Constitution. And then that paragraph goes on to enumerate all the reasons why they decided to create this Constitution. Besides providing for the common defense and establishing domestic tranquility, the very last reason of that paragraph states why our forefathers created the Constitution. The last reason is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Women in this country have been waiting for more than 200 years to enjoy the full blessings of liberty in every state and every territory of this great nation. Think about that. 200 years and more. Most assume already women have equal rights. We've already said that. We get to vote, we hold office, we can become a governor, maybe a senator, maybe even a president. However, it's not true that we share equal rights yet. I was 38. I remember this distinctly. The Equal Credit Opportunity Act was passed, making it possible in 1974 for every woman in every state to finally have her own credit card without having a male signature or cosigner on that account. She could even have her own bank account in every state without requiring a male signature on her account. I remember that very distinctly. My mother was born before women could vote. Rights are not equal, not even now. We've already heard how this happens across. Sometimes, certain issues, we work really, really hard and we get some legislation. Something happens, Title IX maybe, in the education area. Each little piece of equality that we have, we've fought for piece by piece by piece over the last 200 and some years. In 1920, almost 199 years ago, North Carolina had the opportunity to be the final state to pass the 19th Amendment allowing women to vote. You know what that legislature did that year? In August, 99 years ago, they tabled the legislation to be discussed at another time.
Boo.
Within just a few days, 3 or 4 days, Tennessee stepped up and passed the 19th Amendment so women could vote.
All right.
We lost a wonderful opportunity for our state to shine. This year, only one more state is needed to make North Carolina the last one to pass the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment. This year, we could be the state to put that over, to make it part of our Constitution. Only one more state. What a great gift North Carolina can give to all the women and men of our country. Give to everyone in our country the blessings of liberty promised by that first paragraph of our Constitution. And if I'm passionate, I've lived with this stuff a long time.
Hi, I'm Galia Pliga, and I am very proud to stand with you today on behalf of NC National Organization for Women, NC Now. The history of Now is intertwined with the history of the ERA. Now made ERA one of its core issues in 1967, 1 year after its founding in 1966. Now has supported the ERA for over 50 years, and ratifying the ERA remains one of our top priorities. Former now President and Feminist Majority President Ellie Smeal famously said, "Guns have rights in the Constitution, why not women?" I want to thank everybody in this room and men and women outside this room for the work they've done to advance the ERA bills in North Carolina and get more attention to the need for ERA. It takes teamwork, passion, and great lawmakers. Thank you. And I want to mention we have now members here from Raleigh, Durham, Fayetteville, Winston-Salem. So thank you guys. Now members are super excited about the new billboards, which are already installed, at least in some places, from Wilmington to Concord, which is near Charlotte. We hope they spark more interest in the ERA and how it will help women. It's a fundamental legal remedy against sex discrimination, which we sorely need. Too many people don't know what ERA is, and others assume it's already part of the Constitution, as other people have mentioned. Women and men are equals, yet we're not treated equally under the law or in American society. This is a huge problem. ERA would give both federal and state governments the power to rectify patterns and systems of discrimination. Some problems in North Carolina that the ERA should help address are that backlog they found of more than 15,000 rape kits. Why would this evidence ever not be processed? It's proof on a platter. How many more rape kits have been thrown away unprocessed? I'm sure thousands. There were hundreds that we know about just in Fayetteville. This is systematic discrimination against women. The rape and sexual assault in the military is another huge problem. Nationally, it's increasing. But in Fort Bragg, it's increasing faster. And there were 89 cases reported in 2013, 138 in 2016, 162 in 2018, and the Rape Crisis Center of Cumberland County is being overwhelmed. This is what I'm hearing from my members. What's happening on the base that women feel like they have to go elsewhere? Well, The Rape Crisis Center contacted Senator Tillis to look into it. They haven't heard back. There are famous cases lost in the Supreme Court. More reasons why we need ERA. Rapes that go unprosecuted even when the man or men admit to having sex despite being told no, which is legal nowhere else but North Carolina. There's the famous case of Christy Bjankala, raped by varsity football players when she was a freshman at Virginia Tech. In 2000, the Supreme Court struck down the provision of the Violence Against Women Act that enabled her to bring the case against them. It's disgusting. With ERA, violence against women could be punished and would decrease because it's actually punished. An ERA could require that states meet constitutional sex equality standards in the enforcement of their laws against gender violence and expand the federal power to legislate against these crimes. This is what we need. The ERA would provide constitutional basis for claims of gender-based violence. In 1999, another famous case, Jessica Gonzalez's 3 daughters were murdered by their father when the police failed to enforce a court order of protection against him. Jessica called frantically and repeatedly after he kidnapped the girls. In another horrible part of this story, they waited in the car as he went to get the gun he shot them with. In 2005, after going through, all the courts and everything, the Supreme Court denied justice to her. This is a failure to hold the police department accountable for the systematic failure to enforce domestic violence protection orders. The messages are, women and children's lives aren't important. Cops can pick and choose what to enforce. These are horrible messages and unnecessary and wrong. As you're hearing, without the ERA, sex discrimination is legal. Now supports an ERA that uplifts the needs of all women, including immigrant women, women working in low-wage jobs, women of color, women with disabilities, and the LGBTQ+ community. North Carolina has the opportunity to make history as the final state needed to ratify the ERA and amend the Constitution. We must guarantee women equal rights under the Constitution. And the Billboards bring attention, and hopefully more people will get involved. Okay, let's chant. Equal rights. What do we want? Equal rights. When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Equal rights.
When do we want them?
Now.
What do we want?
Equal rights.
When do we want them?
Now.
Woo! Let's make it happen. Thank you.
That would be Senator Smith or Senator Representative Fisher.
Well, I am Susan Fisher. I represent District 114, which is a portion of Buncombe County, and I'm proud to be here today standing with women who, of many generations, who have been working on this issue for quite some time. It feels like a little bit of deja vu when we get together with each other and we talk about the women who went before us and the young women who are coming up now, and the need to educate them about the fact that we do not have the rights that are afforded to men in the Constitution. I want to thank my co-sponsors for allowing me to be a part of this bill, Representative Cunningham, Representative Terry, and Representative Von Hafen, who did such an excellent job giving us the lay of the land here where ERA is concerned. We introduced House Bill 271 a while ago in March, and it's still sitting in Judiciary Committee waiting to be heard. We have more than 50 sponsors of this bill in the House, and we want to be the last state needed to get ERA ratified and as a part of the Constitution of the United States of America. It's interesting, again, deja vu-like, to know that the amendment was passed 100 years ago on June 4th, 1919 in both chambers of Congress. It's stalled and never got to be a part of the Constitution, and that's where it's up to us. We also need to note that in North Carolina, we voted to ratify the ERA in 1977 in the House only, one chamber only. So we still have work to do, but we know we have evidence that it can happen and it must happen in North Carolina. I think it's really great that we are doing this around a time in history that has seen us go so far beyond the vote for women. We are getting ready, or we already have celebrated the anniversary of the right to vote for women. So we have work to do still. But what we're doing now by educating younger women, by being those generations of women who have gone before, to make sure that they know why this is so necessary, is really important. And I want to thank all of the folks from the ERA organizations, from NOW, from AAUW, who have joined us today to bring attention again, once again, to the plight of ERA in North Carolina. ERA now. Thank you.
Are we good? So we're ready for the unveiling then, unless,
Senator Van Dyne,
did
have-
you? You're good?
Okay.
And here in support, very good.
Very good.
We'll do our unveiling and,
Sure.
we're gonna bring our board forward to unveil it, and we'll ask of legislators to gather with us, and you guys got it?
You might want to get it up here.
She's got a different view. It's right, okay. Okay, and Galia, if you'll come stand in the middle behind board two. So, and then everybody gather. Our legislators, please gather. All right, do we have everybody in? Okay, so we're gonna take the corners of this and
Okay.
back it goes.
That's great.
Then, when we get our pictures taken, we'll take a few questions here. So if we got everybody say when, then we're done with pictures here.
How many cameras should we look at?
Try all of them at
I
once.
know. Does everybody have the racing you
The
got?
sign is not upside down, right? No.
All right, good.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right, so
Very
if
good.
there are any questions, I will be happy to entertain those now. And Senator Fisk, would you have
Sure. If there are any questions, certainly feel free to, yes.
I'd like to ask one of Ms. Terwilliger, if she's
Yes.
available. I wonder if you could just provide some color. You said this is something you've been fighting for a long time.
I want to get to the
You had this movement got, I don't want to say, a lot of attention, but it certainly died down. There were some dead years where nothing happened. And then, of course, now these past 2 years, we've had 2 different states pushing us right there to the edge. I wonder if maybe you could comment a little bit about those times where it perhaps seemed like nothing was going to happen ever, and how you felt in those years, and if now perhaps, being so close to the end, if you have maybe renewed energy perhaps for pushing forward.
I was a fairly young woman then. Believe it or not, I was a fairly young woman. And I had young children, and I wasn't actually involved in that fight as much as some of the older women were that have more time perhaps for those kind of issues. But it was like we came to an abrupt halt. And things just were, the woman needs to stay in the home. She doesn't need to have any rights kind of thing. And everybody was wringing their hands and nothing happened. And for a long time, we thought the ERA was surely dead. A few years ago, a group of women and some national organizations began to put together what they called the 3-state strategy. We only needed 3 more states after that first initial burst of work in the 70s. And so we saw 2 states pass it recently. Only 1 more is required. And we've had recent national action to work on that so that if it is passed, there will not be any question about, there was a date that we were supposed to have all those states acquired by certainly at the time. I believe Congress is going to take a look at that, and that will not be a problem, at least that's what it looks like at the moment. But yes, it's been a long struggle. Women struggled for 100 years to get the right to vote. We're celebrating that next year, commemorating that occasion next year. It will be a busy year for women. It would be a truly wonderful thing if the ERA was passed so that in the 100th year of our right to vote, we also had equal rights in the Constitution.
She was working on it in the 70s and 80s.
Okay,
Roberta
nice.
Waddle, if you want to.
Yeah, maybe I'll grab you after that. And maybe just one more for a lawmaker as well.
Sure.
You mentioned that this has been in the Judiciary Committee, I think since March. This has been now introduced for the third time.
Sure.
In the House.
In the House.
In
In
the
the
House
House, right.
Judiciary
And,
Rules.
Right.
And it's,
So
to
talk, go ahead.
To be candid with you, I think it's gonna take a significant momentum, along with this new election cycle, to get the legislators on board with this issue. I mean, what we really need to do is the same way when we go out and we ask about teacher pay, or we ask about other issues that are critical here in North Carolina, ERA needs to be at the top of agendas when they interview candidates, when they bring them into candidates forums, so that it's elevated in the minds of lawmakers. I know that I spoke with several Republican lawmakers before introducing the Senate bill. And several of them were actually interested in the bill. However, when they went back and met with their caucus and leadership, they were told that they shouldn't sign on to it. So, I mean, unfortunately, we need to make this a strong bipartisan effort, because when women get their rights, it's not going to be based upon whether they're Republicans, Democrats, or Independents. It's because it's the right thing to do. So I'm really hopeful that if we can start to hold people accountable and bring it up more often in these candidates forums, that it'll make a difference. Now, I can remember years ago, I actually went in and was proposing a pay equity study for the state of North Carolina to look at the differential in pay between men and women holding comparable jobs. Now, I was told at that time they didn't want to do that study. They didn't want to launch that study because it would be a roadmap to litigation, because they knew of what it would show. And we got to get beyond that. We got to move things forward. We got to make sure that people get equal pay for equal work. We got to make sure that the state of North Carolina does not have the ability to lawfully discriminate as they do today. And we need to ensure that all people in this country, regardless of their agenda, in the year 2000, and I'm going to say, go ahead and say 2019, I don't want to wait to 2020, they all have the same rights in the eyes of the law. So, I mean, pushing it out of committee is a formidable task, but I think if people begin to hold their legislators accountable, and one thing this Billboard campaign can do is cause people to think and focus on this issue in a way that they might not have in the past, and you may see a resurgence of interest. So I'm very pleased about all the groups and organizations that are coming forward to do this.
We have had hundreds of women. And we do want to add this, for those that may not be aware, that bill at the United States House level to remove the deadline, they believe they have the floor votes. They believe that that could happen, and for the first time you would see the deadline removed, any question about that removed, and it's possible that it's been heard already in a subcommittee, and it's going to go before the full judiciary, get markup, and go to the floor, and that will be a historic moment as well. So you should be tracking that bill. Yeah, right. And I guess we can take some more pictures, and then if anybody wants to talk to each other, or if the press wants to say anything else, that would be great. So did you want to include, or?
Let me just thank everybody for being here this afternoon, and it's wonderful to have so many people as allies on this issue. You know, having grown up in a family with 3 sisters and a very strong mother, it would be very difficult for me to even think about being extraordinarily supportive of this issue. It's inseparable from who I am, and as one of the few males here today, I thank all of you that have partnered with me on this issue for many years, and my colleague, Senator Van Dyne, and of course my other colleagues over in the House as well, Representative Fisher, and Vina Hagan. She's come in and done such an extraordinary job this year as a new member. Thank you all so very much.